Alright, so for today's assignment, the PT6 plugins exercise, you're going to practice inserting, editing, and loading presets into plugins and Pro Tools. Open the Sharp Hand Joe session you've been working with and insert plugins onto the tracks as shown in class, and you should also set up a few send effects. Don't use the overhead or room tracks. I'm going to hide and deactivate them, and then use at least 10 insert effects and 2 send effects, reverbs and delays, or just 2 reverbs if you want. When you're finished, just submit a screenshot like this one here. So this is basically what we're going to be doing right now. So first things first, I'm going to get rid of my overhead and my, well, actually wait, what does it say here? Get rid of the overhead or room tracks. Yeah, so the overhead mono and this one here, these ones here, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these. I'll keep the stereo overhead just because that one does have some cymbals and stuff in it, but the overhead mono and room, I'm going to get rid of these. I can hide and deactivate. So if I right click on them, if I've selected them, I right click and I select hide and deactivate. Now it gets rid of them, but they're actually over here on the left hand side. They're still in the session right here. Overhead, mono, and room stereo are still there. We're just not using them in the session anymore. So I've got these here. And the reason why I kept this is because this is a lot of the overhead. It's a lot of the cymbal information is in here. So there's nothing, otherwise we wouldn't have any of these ride cymbals and stuff. So I want to keep these. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and let's just loop this section here. All right, it's just as good as any to loop. And first things first, I'm going to create a couple of reverb. I'm going to create a reverb and a delay. So remember from what we talked about yesterday with all this stuff and plugins, inserts, all this stuff, make a new aux track, 2 new aux tracks. Both of them are going to be stereo. 2 of them, there we go, there's 1 and 2. And the first one here, I'm going to call this one reverb drums, and the second one I'm going to call delay drums, like that. So I've got a reverb drum and a delay drum. These are both aux tracks. They're both stereo. And on this first one here, I'm going to put a reverb. Let's put the deverb here. There we go. I'm going to make it into a room. Let's make it a medium room, and I'm going to just make sure I turn up my gain up to 0 because you don't really need to be -4. I'm not really sure why they always have it like that. It's been like that since the beginning, and it drives me nuts. And how do you loop? Well, what I did, there's a couple ways you can do it. Probably the easiest way you can do it is to make sure you're in grid mode. Make sure your grid is set to like a bar or something, and just highlight the part that you want to loop up across the top like this. See how I'm just clicking and dragging? That's the part I want to loop. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And just make sure that your loop playback mode is turned on over here. If it's not, you can right click and select loop mode right there like that. So that's how you would loop. So now let's listen to this. Oh wait, hold on, I'm going to put a delay in here. And for the delay, I'm going to use the delay that comes with Pro Tools. It is called the Mod Delay 3. And Mod Delay 3 has this cool feature in here where you can sync it into the track, and that's what we want to do. I'm going to sync it into the track here and use this. Yeah, I'm going to make this one a dotted 8th note, and this one's going to be an 8th note here. And that way it's going to have a little bit of stereo width going on for us. Make sure everything's wet on these 2 things. Make sure everything's 100% wet. Yep, they are good. Now, the other thing, the last thing we need to do with these is make sure that we set our inputs for these. This one here, the input is going to be bus 1 and 2. And this one, the input's going to be bus 3 and 4. Just make sure they're different inputs. And now, let's go ahead and grab our kick, snare, all this stuff here. And we've got this stuff set up, so I'm just going to leave this alone for now. We're not going to send anything over to it. It's just over there, hanging out, ready to use it when we need to. What I'm going to do first, though, is I'm going to go ahead and make some of these sound pretty good. We've got some panning and stuff. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and beef up this kick drum a little bit. Let's just listen to this. That sounds pretty good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an EQ, 7-band EQ, the one that comes with Pro Tools. And I'm just going to go through some presets. Let's go here to kick drum. And let's just listen and hear what these sound like. I kind of like that sound right there. right? And you can just go through and check these out. Let me make sure I'm going back to my kick drum. There we go. And I think I like this big hi-fi kick. Yeah, I like that one. It doesn't have too much bass and stuff like that. And let me come back and answer those questions here, just so, because I want to make sure that we're getting all this stuff together right now. Also, a lot of these questions are actually in yesterday's lesson, so I would actually, we could talk about it, but I mean, to group things is just Command G, and then adjusting the level. Just make sure you turn the group off down here in the lower left-hand corner. All right, so I got this kick drum here. We got this. Let's also add a little compression into it. Now, I've got the sound sounding good, but I actually want to put the compression before the EQ here, and we're going to use this compressor limiter. You could put it before, after, and I would encourage you to try putting it before and after and seeing what it sounds like. We're going to go here to kick thump. Let's hear what this one sounds like. There we go. And I'm just going to adjust my threshold, this arrow key right here. I'm going to adjust this threshold until it's saying about -3 to -6. You don't want it to be like this. It's too much. -12 is too much compression. There we go, boom. Okay, there we go, there's that. And now let's hear what it sounds like if we put it afterwards. There's this. Boom, there we go. I'm not gonna go listen to your friend's song. Maybe later, but probably not. All right, so we got this in here. I'm gonna put it beforehand. And now let's go over here to the snare drum. Now, oftentimes we can use, for drums, we can use the same plugin settings for both of these here, but not the same plugin settings, sorry, the same plugins, but with different settings. So first of all, I'm gonna go ahead and bypass this compression. I'm gonna click on this one band EQ and go here to my snare drum, and let's just go through this and just check this out, see what's going on here. Now what I want to do with the snare drum is I want to make that snare drum a little bit louder. So I'm going to pull this kick drum back and just turn up my overall volume. I kind of like that one there. I'm going to pull this one up a little bit more here. I'm going to pull this one down. That's kind of a sound that I kind of like. And now let's get this compression going here. Let's just hear what the snare compression sounds like. All right, that's okay, but let's just try out a couple of other compression. All right, that's way too much. That's not too bad. I don't hate that one. Cool. All right, so we got that there. I'm gonna turn on my hi-hat here. And I'm not gonna use a compression on the hi-hat. I'm gonna use an EQ on it. Let's go over here to hi-hat. And try this. All right, something like this I think sounds okay. Put it in the middle there. Yeah, that sounds okay. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and skip the toms, and we're gonna go straight over to, I'm gonna go ahead and mute the toms for now, and I'm gonna go straight over here to my overheads. Now these, what I wanna do is I wanna get the fullness of things from my kick and my snare, and the overheads here. I want to get more of the high end of stuff here. So I'm going to go in here and grab the EQ. Same thing we were just doing here with the EQ. And I'm just going to go in here to these. And let's see here. There are drums, drum overheads. Let's just see what some presets are for these. All right. It's already pretty bright. I don't really need to dim it out. So I like this one, but I also kind of like that one there. So my high mid, where is it? 3.5, and we're gonna tighten up this Q a little bit and boost it. Well, not that much. There we go. All right, so Joey says, when editing the plugin, do you suggest selecting the track you're working on or mixing it with all the tracks on? You really want to do it with all the tracks on, but I'm just kind of listening right now for it by itself. And then I also kind of know what I'm looking for, but in reality, you kind of want to balance it with everything else. And especially depending on what you're playing with, what audio sound you're playing with, you want to make sure that it sounds good with the whole recording and not just by itself, because oftentimes things won't sound good by themselves necessarily if they're mixed into the whole thing. For example, a piano sound, pianos, if you're mixing it with a full band, like if you've got a piano and a rock band, you're not going to mix that piano so it sounds good by itself. You're going to mix the piano so it sounds good with the rest of the instruments, which might mean you're cutting out quite a lot of the low frequencies of the piano. So if you were to solo that piano out, it might sound really thin and weak sounding by itself, but might sound really good with the whole rest of the band. So you really want to make sure you're EQing with everything on, but you want to solo things out just to kind of hear, especially in the beginning, solo things out so you can tell what it sounds like, what it's doing, and that's what I'm doing here. But then also, as you get more and more used to things, you'll kind of be able to set things pretty quick and say, okay, you know, I know these sounds sound kind of like this. This is a good setting for this, and then kind of move it from there, which is what I'm doing right now. Cool. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, let's go ahead and find a place where those tom drums actually have some. Let's go ahead and grab here. I'm going to grab this part here. All right, cool. Cool, and I'm gonna grab this. We're gonna loop this part here. And the reason why we're doing that is because we want to hear the toms. Okay. And they sound pretty good. Yeah, I don't really want to add much to these tom drums here. What I do want to do though is I want to have all this stuff going into my reverb over here. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take everything and set it in there like we're actually putting that drummer in a room, but I'm going to mix how much of each instrument is going into that room. So we're going to set over here and set this kick drum here to bus 1 and 2. And let's listen to this kick drum here. I'm going to solo this out. Make sure these are solo safe. Okay, that's way too much for that kick drum. Cool. So I just pulled it back, and now I'm just going to go ahead and open this up one at a time. Probably less on that kick. All right, cool. And let's do it like this. Actually, let's do it the opposite direction. Let's unmute things as we go, so that way we don't have to have a whole bunch of things soloed out. And I'm going to go ahead and leave this one on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this over here like this. Cool. I'm just going to pull these across and let's just hear what happens. And you notice now that the tom drums have more reverb on them than the other stuff does. So you may like that, you may not like that. I put it on there, but I'm not feeling it. So I'm just gonna move one and hold down Option and drag it across. Cool, okay. Next thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna put a little reverb, not a little reverb, we're gonna put a little delay on the snare drum here. So the snare drum, send this over to bus 3 and 4. We're not going to use the delay for anything else, just for the snare drum, and we're not going to use much. So we're just going to put this out. Let's just listen to what the snare drum sounds like with that delay. There we go. A little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this delay and I'm going to send it over to my reverb here, the bus 1 and 2. Boom. And I'm going to turn that up. Cool. That sounds all right. Great. Now let's go over here. Let's just listen, make sure our ride cymbal sounds good. I'm going to change this from rhythmic. Let's see what it sounds like in polyphonic mode for this overhead here. I'm not really loving the and then one of these here sounds kind of weird. This kick drum here is a little bit off. Let's just see what we can do with that, if we can fix that. Yeah, hear that? So the reason why I did that was because, yeah, see that? I'm going to get rid of this one here and drag this one back. And the reason why I did that was because of something that was not quite on with one of the other tracks. There we go. That's going to sound a lot better. Let's just check that out. Oh, but it got off from the down here. So let's go ahead and fix this one. Probably what we want to do, actually, let me back this up. I probably did it a little bit wrong there. What we want to do is make sure that our group is turned on for this before we start messing with these. Yeah. And now fix it with the group turned on. Oops. Now let's put it back a little bit. I'll also turn off my, I do not like my scrolling to be on. I'm weird like that. Yeah, much better. Turn this one off here. Move that one over as well. Cool, that sounds much better. Oh, that one's gonna sound weird too. There we go, yeah. And you notice, see how there's like some of these are off a little bit? See how it's off? Well, you might wanna go in here and fix these if you haven't already, because that'll make things a little bit on the weird side. Just not gonna be perfect, it's gonna sound a little bit off. Cool. All right, sounding pretty good. How many we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got 9 of these in here. Let's get a little bit more, just a little bit more. Let's go ahead and put a little compression and EQ on these toms, just because. So I'm gonna use the one for my kick drum actually on these toms. Let's just see what this sounds like here. I'm just holding on Option to drag them over. The reason I'm using the kick drum is so we get a little meat to those toms. Let's see what happens. Where's our toms? There's some toms. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Sounds much bigger. It sounds like an 80s rock band. Turn these down. Cool. All right. in general, that's sounding pretty good. Now let's do this. I'm going to do one last thing here, something we haven't really talked about. And if you do this, this is going to be bonus points. And actually remind me if you did some of the stuff I talked about bonus points before, because I went through and graded some stuff and I just realized I wasn't thinking about bonus points, not extra credit, bonus points. So we're going to go over here and just remind me if you did the bonus points for the other ones so I can give you credit for that. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to make a new aux channel. We're going to give it a name. It's stereo. And we're going to call this one drum group, Dr. Group. Boom, drum group. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all my drums and I'm going to route them into this drum group. Now, up to now, we've been using buses to send stuff over to things for our reverbs and delays. But what we're going to do at this point is we're going to take all these tracks here and we're going to go from the output and we're going to go into this drum group. And the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to hold down Option and Shift and I'm going to go to track. Make sure they're all highlighted. They're all highlighted here. Option Shift, go to track, output, go to track and set it to the one we just made, which is drum group right there. Boom. And now they all go over here. They all say drum group, and this one says drum group. Now, you'll say, wait, Tony, that doesn't say bus 1, 2, bus 3, 4, bus 5, and 6. It does not. This is a secret, is that Pro Tools, you can actually have it says, it can be any name at all. It doesn't have to be bus 1 and 2, bus 3 and 4, bus 5 and 6. It can be any name at all that you can use to route your signal around. We're going to dive deeper into this next week, and I'm going to show you some really cool shortcuts and stuff next week. But you know, this week I want you using bus 1 and 2, bus 3 and 4 numbers, or if you want to do this one here, but like I said, this is not something you have to do. So now what I'm going to do is in here, I'm going to use a compressor on everything overall. I'm going to use the BF76, which does come with Pro Tools. And we're going to, I'm not going to use a preset for this, I'm just going to dial it in. There we go. Cool. I'm going to turn off my delay, or turn it down. And I'm going to turn on the reverb overall. It's just a little bit too much reverb overall. There's no reverb. That's the reverb we had before. Cool. There we go. There we go. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. Awesome. And now I have a pretty good sounding little thing. We've got about 10 processes in here. You can have a few more, a few less. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, cool, 13. And then we got 2. So this is good right here. This one sounds pretty good. It's a good little rough mix of these drums. And you've got all the processors on here. We've talked about using presets. We've talked about moving things around away from the presets. We've talked about routing the signal here. So this is a really good overview of all the stuff we've learned this week. Okay, so this is a great assignment to do today, and I've given you a nice overview of it here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.